Hello all, just finished watching Loki Season 2 Episode 4. I'd say it was a slightly better episode. Still lots of walking about and talking, but it felt like it had a bit more purpose to it, though there are a couple of seriously moments in there. I'll get straight into spoilers. It opens up at the end of time. Renslayer's there with Miss Minutes. Miss Minutes is revealing to her this big secret, and it turns out that he who remains was her partner in crime, and that she actually led the army that enabled him to win the war with the Kangs. And apparently, we don't need no man. So, once again, they've destroyed Kang. What is it with Marvel and the MCU? Why are they determined to destroy this character before he's even got off the ground? You know, he turns up in the first series in a long, boring monologue and gets just stabbed. He gets beaten by Ant-Man in Quantumania, and now it turns out the one in the first series of Loki wasn't a big deal anyway. Renslayer did it all. Oh my god, seriously guys. Anyway, we now go back to the TVA. Victor Timely appears and starts walking around. Don't know where Loki and Morbius were since they were right behind him, but there you go. B-15 turns up, sees who it is awestruck. Loki and Morbius turn up, try and persuade him to help. Sylvie turns up at the back, because apparently she followed them, and they manage to persuade him to help. They take him down into the depths to see Obi, and there's an exchange between them where it turns out that Victor Timely is honoured to meet Obi because he wrote the TVA handbook, and Obi is honoured to meet Victor Timely because it was his work that inspired him to write the handbook. So a little bit of a time paradox there. But it's the TVA, doesn't really matter, time works differently. They show the plan to repair the loom, but they're not sure if it will work, and suddenly Victor Timely says, yes, but if we use this, and that thing that is his life's work is the very thing they need. Because, of course it is. They start working on it. Loki, Morbius and Sylvie leave. Morbius wants to go for pie. Sylvie has a hissy fit, storms off, and accidentally ends up in the pie room, where she and Loki talk about their feelings. I mean, at least she's got a bit of a personality, but it's the personality of a stroppy brat. And Loki basically says, someone's got to look after this timeline. You made the choice. We've got the multiple timelines. We've got all the branches. We've got to look after them. She says something along the lines about playing God. And Loki just replies, we are gods. And I thought for a second that something interesting might be about to happen. Has Loki kind of started to figure something out where he can get a bit of power? No, seems not. Meanwhile, B-15 is gone into where those people who are blowing up the timelines are being kept prisoner. The dude who's the actor is trying to persuade them to take over the TVA. B-15 goes in, encouraged by one of the other generals, tries to convince the general who is leading the renegades to come on to her side. And I'm feeling like this was because they just wanted something for that character to do, because she's been a spare part most of this series. Just kind of wandering around looking shocked and narrating stuff that we know is happening. Her deep, heartfelt argument went, go on. And the other person was like, how do I trust you? Go on. And that was enough to convince her. So B-15 leaves them in the room. There's more faffing around with the device. I'll get onto the plan in a minute. Meanwhile, Renslayer and Miss Minutes reappear in that same room. I'm not sure how, because she was stranded at the end of time. But apparently she can get back. Maybe Miss Minutes can do it. I don't know. She asks them to join her and help take back the TVA. The general and all her men, except Actor Dude, reject the offer, and she and Miss Minutes crush them in that crushy box thing. And then they leave, and B-15 walks back in and sees the mess. She tries to contact Morbius, but Miss Minutes has taken over and is blocking communications. Morbius goes back in to see Obi, this random dude, and Victor. They were talking about how complicated it would be to integrate all these devices, and it just turned out there happens to be a perfectly shaped hole for it. It puts the thing in the hole, they put it together, job's done. Victor decides to go off for a cocoa and is kidnapped by Actor Dude. And Actor Dude prunes one of the time variant cops. He's kind of been a reoccurring character throughout. Not any longer. Although technically he's still alive because he's at the end of time. We know this because that's what happened in the last series, so they could actually go and save him. But maybe they got better things to do, because the TVA is in threat of being destroyed by the Loom and the multiverse. So Victor's taken back to Renslayer and Miss Minutes, and he kind of stalls them. Meanwhile, we get a flashback of sorts to Loki time jumping, because this is where he was time slipping to. And we get him running around, and we find out why Sylvie's in the lift. It turns out that Loki, the now Loki, pruned the Loki from the past. Obviously, we still don't know why Loki was time slipping. I don't know if we'll ever know. Obi then rings them, because that's who was ringing on the phone, tells them to get Victor, and say the only way they can stop Miss Minutes is by doing a reboot. Yep, switch it off and on again. Seriously. In the room where they were interrogating Victor, Miss Minutes blinks out. Actor Dude hears a noise, goes outside, and because the reboot switched off the device that blocks the ability of people to use magic, Loki and Sylvie ambush Actor Dude. Sylvie enchants him. He goes back in the room, prunes Renslayer. They get Victor, leaving Actor Dude behind, and then take him to the room where you've got the view of the loom. Victor sticks his head in a thing, and it enables them to access the loom. For some reason, they open the shutters. I mean, presumably it's just so you can go, oh, that's cool, and when you see the loom. But he closed the shutters to protect the TVA. Why are you opening them again? The plan is, and bear in mind the previous plan with Loki time slipping, so the plan is to take a thing that looks exactly like the thing from the last time, put it in the same thing that Morbius put it in the last time, and it'll do the same thing or something. It's like, that's the same plan. Your plan to stop the problem with the loom, which apparently will make the loom increase in size, is almost exactly the same as your plan to stop Loki time slipping. I mean, was there a lack of imagination? Couldn't they think of anything else? So Victor volunteers to go out. Apparently the storm is worse. The time radiation, whatever the hell time radiation is worse. But he volunteers because it's his moment, and I don't know quite where that came from. There was a moment where I thought, oh, that's quite a nice arc. He kind of goes from this bumbling con man to... And it's like, well, no, there was no progression. When did he suddenly become so selfless? Just, you know, at the beginning of the episode, he's terrified of everybody. And the end of the episode, for some reason, suddenly he wants to volunteer to risk his life. Yeah, my immediate reaction was nice, quickly followed by, where did that come from? It just didn't really make sense to me. There was a nice bit now where Victor goes downstairs, puts the suit on by himself somehow. I don't know how he managed to get the suit on by himself, but he managed it. Gets ready to go outside, gets ready to run. The door's open, he steps outside and is instantly destroyed. And I thought that was quite a nice little moment. I was expecting him to get so far before dying, not to kind of literally instantly die. And then you're left with all of them standing there shocked at what's just happened as the loom, I don't know if it explodes, it's kind of weird, it's this block of light. I'm guessing it's supposed to be an explosion or something along those lines. And it just comes towards them. And the final few seconds is a close-up of Loki's face tearing up, believe it or not, as the explosion gets nearer and his face becomes brighter, and then it just fades to black. It is a cliffhanger, but it felt like they undermined it. The fade to black was just weird. I don't know, maybe I'm being picky, but that fade to black felt really, really weird. Kind of took the edge off that ending. There was a couple of nice moments in there. There felt like there was more of a sense of urgency to this episode, although there was still a lot of meandering around and talking that wasn't really necessary, and subplots that weren't really necessary. The whole bit with the TVA agents in the room served no purpose really, other than to say, oh, isn't Renslayer evil? But she's just been pruned again, so she's not that big a deal. And Miss Minutes has been rebooted and switched off. So again, this idea that these two are this big threat who fought off Kang's armies, I don't know. I guess she's had her mind wiped, so she doesn't remember any of that, but you know, you start off setting up this threat and then she just becomes a nothing. Again, interesting visuals, although I am noticing they're just using the same rooms over and over again. Bearing in mind the TVA has been pruning timelines and therefore it's this massive bureaucratic beast. Very, very few people are in it. The corridors are very empty most of the time. Just something that kind of was brought into sharp focus this episode, that was. I've noticed it before, but it was very, very evident. There is a moment where they're talking about the plan and Mobius says to Loki, you should go out, you should wear the suit, I did it last time. Loki's kind of like, no, I'm not going to do it. And that was kind of typical Loki. You know, the idea of self-preservation at the front of his mind. For a second, the selflessness disappears and you get a bit of the old selfish Loki. Although at the end he does volunteer to stand up and be the person who goes out there before Victor actually says he'll do it. So that was kind of a nice little bit, and that bit made a bit more sense. As in, it made more sense for Loki to turn around than it did for Victor to. Anyway, I think I'll leave that there. There's not much else to say on this episode. Not much else to rip into, really. The beginning of it was the worst bit. They do seem to keep building people up and then just wiping them out. It's a really weird and stupid way to write this stuff. As always, I'd be interested to hear your comments. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate it. And until next week, although I may be releasing a Halloween video, peace out.